85% of U.S. manufacturers are family-owned businesses, and they have been struggling for many years because the retailers cut them off and no longer sell their product.
And that's what I love about, our audience of Liberty Spenders, is because these are people who've said, I value this.
But I feel like that's probably the biggest challenge. Everybody thinks it's a great idea. But then, just like me, if I have a choice sometimes between salad and a cheeseburger, I eat the cheeseburger,
It's easy to say that we're all patriots because we all have to make American dollars. And those American dollars can be used for one of two things, good or evil.
Hello, and welcome to the Liberty Spenders podcast. We are Kurt and Kristen Ludart, your hosts, co-founders of the Prosper Group, an agency that's helped raise over $500 million and help elect over 100 members of Congress, 15 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. And now, in addition to helping political candidates get elected, we're helping your business get elected by answering this question. What if you could exponentially grow your business by tapping into a lucrative and engaged audience that we call Liberty Spenders? Now, they are 76.5 million of them. They're Christian or conservative consumers, and they're looking to buy from businesses and brands that align with their values. To learn more about that, you can get access to our new best-selling book at libertyspenders.com/free.
And our guest today is Don Buckner. He is the founder and CEO of madeinusa.com.
Woo.
Don's a self-made entrepreneur, and he transformed his vision for American manufacturing into a thriving e-commerce platform that champions authentic USA-made products. And I think he told us, is it 500 manufacturers or 1,500 manufacturers you've got on there now?
500 so far.
500, which
amazing.
Is big. And he built Vactron equipment from his garage into the 13th fastest growing privately held company in the Inc. 500, which is a big deal. He's also been named Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year Award in Florida. Don's journey embodies resilience and innovation. He's passionate about boosting jobs and national pride. Don launched the first Made in America trade show back in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We're happy to have you on.
Yes, welcome.
Well, thank you, Kurt and Kristen. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Look forward to sharing the vision.
Yeah, well, we can't wait to get into that because there's some amazing things happening that you're working on. And as we were talking about it, you were on the front lines of pushing this very important topic. But I wanted to take just a second because I wanted to steal maybe some wisdom for you, for some of our other business owners. And so because you've built a couple of these businesses from the ground up, I'm just dying to know, what's the story behind how you secured funding for madeinusa.com? Because you've done this before, and what lessons might you learn or have shared?
Well, we've done 4 businesses, 4 startups so far, and it happens in a variety of ways. The very first one was primarily once I gave everything to God, it all happened. It just clicked. It was just amazing how it happened. It happened very quickly, and that was Vactron. We had 2 other ventures, Made in America, which you represented there. Trade show there in Indianapolis, had a great time. We had 300 manufacturers come, Ted Nugent, John Rich. We had several, the governor came, several speakers came, and the Fox and Friends gave us 13 live hits. So it was a great experience. And then, of course, COVID came along and killed the trade show business. And so that was a bust. And then we built Gator World, which is a tourist attraction here in Florida, where tourists from north or wherever could stop in, have an experience with an alligator, and it was going great until COVID came along, killed Gator World. So we started with, and then in September 21, we decided to reinvent ourselves. And I had bought several domains back in 1998, if you can believe that, 27 years ago. I bought madeinusa.com, madeintheusa.com, madeinamerica.com, and americanmade.com. So I've had those for a long, long time. So we decided to utilize one of them and take madeinusa.com and turn it into basically something like Amazon, but only American-made products, because there's currently no quick, easy way to find and purchase an American-made product. So that was a mission, and that's what we're in the process of creating.
Well, I just think that's exciting. And anybody who's been through those types of ups and down journeys. I'm so sorry. What happened?
Well,
I mean, my goodness.
I feel like we have to pause on Gator World.
I know.
How long did you have Gator World going?
Well, I'll back up a little story. So I was traveling on trade missions with Jeb Bush down in South America. And with us, we had the Orlando Tourism Commissioner with us, and he had a list of the top 10 things tourists want to do when they come to Florida. In order was Disney, beach, and number 3 was have an encounter with an alligator. So I just kind of filed that away. And in 2004, I went ahead and trademarked the name Gator World. So in 2017, we just bought some property near the Interstate 75 and the Turnpike, make a quick, easy stop for people to have a quick. And so we just bought 300 alligators, put them in pens, and started advertising. And tourists came, and we were having a great time. And then all of a sudden, COVID came, and we sold the gators, sold the property, and it just didn't work.
I tell you, I just feel like this is ripe for a meme, like Florida man gets eaten by, I don't know, like that's wild.
That is wild. And so so you almost had like a gator zoo, right?
No, that's exactly right. So we just wanted to make it a 1 or 2 hour experience, because once you see an alligator, 5 minutes later, you're going, that thing is boring. It's just lazy.
Yeah.
And so they're not very entertaining animals. So it was, and what we learned was that we had rabbits and chickens and goats, and they were the bigger hit, believe it or not, than the alligators.
Mm.
Well, they have a couple of gators at our Indianapolis zoo, and I think the same thing. The kids always want to go see them,
mm-hmm.
and you say, okay, let's go see them, and they always have found the darkest corner in their little enclosure, and they're just laying there, and so and the kids are always disappointed. I said, well, so I always avoid the gator at the zoo because I think the kids are going to be disappointed. Every once in a while, there's a little spot in that enclosure that's kind of separated, and there's glass on all 4 sides, and the gators will get real close to it, and that's fun because the kids are like, you feel like you can touch it, right? Otherwise, you're absolutely right. They just they're lazy animals.
Yeah, we had and so it was interesting to watch people. Some people even hear the word alligator, they start shaking. If they see an alligator, they start shaking. And then there's other people that don't. What they're wanting is that rush. It's a weird scenario. They want this fear of it's a rush. And then there's people that if they're not sitting on the back of one, they're not having an alligator experience. So it's
oh my goodness.
It's everybody has their own distance, I guess. It was interesting to watch where people actually start having that experience.
Well, and I like the story of entrepreneurs who you filed away one piece of information, right? That this is something that people want when they come to Florida, and thought, well, I can make that happen, right? And I think so many people want to make it more complex than that. Maybe they all want to invent Facebook or something, which is a big, may feel much bigger, but sometimes just solving a problem, like people want to have a gator experience. Where do they go? And
right.
Is it easily accessible? And simple business, of course, until the government shuts you down.
Well,
yeah.
What was cool about that particular business was that you're not selling a product. You don't have to recreate a product and sell it and deliver it. It's an experience you're selling, which is basically time. And you can sell it over and over and over and over. And it costs you the same no matter what. So your costs are fixed. But it's an experience you're selling, which is entirely different business.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little nugget. That's a good nugget.
And then the Made in USA trade show, which had in Indianapolis, which, by the way, best city in the world. So you picked the right location, trade show capital, right? A lot of trade shows here.
Yeah, conventions and
So was the idea there to introduce potential, manufacturers to other Made in the USA products that they could buy or work with, or what was the outcome of the trade show?
Well, the mission was to bring awareness to U.S. manufacturing, and no one had done that before. No one had talked about, or they don't get highlighted. They're left in the corner, kind of like the alligator, and they get ignored. And so we're trying to bring prominence to them and show how important it is. We created a video that very clearly shows that manufacturing is the core of our economy. Without manufacturing, you don't have mining, you don't have recycling, you don't have agriculture. All those are feedstocks for manufacturing. And so all that goes away when manufacturing goes away. So we are very, very keen on the idea of promoting manufacturing, especially in communities. And so we're just very keen on that. And that was just a way to do that. And we had a great time. It was a good experience, and we would have done it again.
Well, now you've done it online with madeinusa.com. So give us a little bit of you described it briefly, but talk about it a little bit more. What are you hoping to do with Made in USA? Who are the types of people who should be hitting that website up daily? What's the outcome there?
So it's a multi-spoked wheel, if you will. So we've got several different audiences. We've identified 9 different personas that we feel are pretty keen on the idea of using their dollars or voting with their dollars and buying American-made products and understanding where those dollars are going. So those audiences can range from a union person all the way to a vet to even a single mom necessarily that may have been a vet but our primary, believe it or not, is actually government.
Mm-hmm.
We're keen on the idea and promoting the idea of spending American tax dollars back with American-made products, creating American jobs. If just the government, local, state, and federal governments would spend our tax dollars back on American-made products, it would turn our economy it would be incredible what that would do. Just keeping our dollars in this country versus sending them overseas.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting because that's a different take, right, than building your e-commerce platform, for everyday people to go and support these businesses.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right in terms of we all know how much money the federal government spends sometimes on really stupid things, and just the idea that the federal government has to buy all every office building's got to have things from toilet paper to cleaners to building products and maintenance and the whole thing. And I don't know how much of that's bought outside the U.S., but to your point, it's probably a lot of it, if not most of it, in some of these cases.
Especially on what they call the micro buys. Anything under, a lot of them have discretion under $5,000 to spend it on anything they want. So they don't have any guidance on that, and we're trying to impose some guidance on that idea. Back to the consumer side, there is the survey says there's 17% of us, which is 45 million of us, that are willing to spend a 30% premium. The challenge has been there is no quick, simple, easy way to find, identify, and purchase a U.S. made product. So consequently, if somebody has that desire, they don't spend the 30 minutes necessary to chase that product down that they're looking for. And sometimes it's not even made here, but that, nothing you can do about that, at least at this stage. But we trying to list as many broad products. So the easiest way to describe madeinusa.com is similar to Amazon, but only American-made products. So if we can pull away just a little bit of Amazon's business and keep some of that dollars in this country longer, it multiplies. So you send it to the manufacturer, which we talked about earlier, but 85% of U.S. manufacturers are family-owned businesses, and they have been struggling for many years because the retailers cut them off and no longer sell their products. So they gin up some website and pray that somebody comes by and buys a product. And then if they do resort to Amazon, they list a product on Amazon, and Amazon lists their product, domestic made product, right next to a cheaper imported product, and they lose the sale anyway. So it's a very dire situation for these manufacturers. And so here we come along, and when they hear about us and know what our mission is, they're excited about it because at least they know their product is going to be listed next to someone who has the same issues they do. They have to pay a decent wage. They have to comply with environmental regulations, and they have to have a safe workplace. And they got the same tax issues typically, unless you're in certain states. But we still do, at least it's a fair level playing field in that situation. So that 45 million consumers that we're looking for and targeting, which we haven't done yet, we are still in that go-to-market stage. We are live. However, we haven't had the capital necessarily to go to market yet. So, but we're ready. We're teed up. We're ready to go. I like to look at us as a rocket that's sitting on a launch pad. We built the rocket, which is the tech. Took 2 years to build out the tech. We didn't trust Shopify or WooCommerce, so we had to build our own because they will deplatform you. And so we built that out, and then we've reached out to manufacturers, and we convinced 500 of them to list their products. Currently, about 150,000 or so items. And so we don't have everything, but we're still adding products every day. And so that's where we are. Just trying to keep all jobs in this country.
Well, and that leads me to a question, because one thing that's cool about madeinusa.com is you guys are passionate about transparency and strict about it. I love the labels, 100% made in the USA or assembled in USA. So how do you make sure that every one of those products meets those standards? What's your process?
So we do the best due diligence we can. First, they tell us what they think they are. And then we go over that with them and help them understand and educate them to, as a manufacturer, because some of them think they are and they're not. So if there's any what we feel is potentially deceptive, we move them down one category. So we have 3 categories, and they're all designated by the FTC. And we communicate with the FTC to make sure we are right in these designations. But there's madeinusa.com. There's Made in USA. So Made in USA means all or virtually all. Only a government can come up with a description like that. All or virtually all domestic componentry, right? There's not a clear percentage. The next one is Made in USA, domestic and global materials. And so that means, and we like to see better than 50%. So that means obviously what it states is that about half the product can be as much as an imported product. And then the last one is assembled in USA, which is again another interesting designation. And you can designate those products by the grayed out flag. So we designate all these products individually by this, but that means that they have to add value to some degree. They have to paint it, package it, manipulate it, do something to add value, create jobs on this side. So that's assembled. It has to pass what's called a screwdriver test. It just can't be 2 parts screwed together. That doesn't qualify.
Well, I just think that's so important, because for people that, there's this rising trend, where consumers, they've been caring about this for a long time, but it's a greater thing right in the market. And there's all these conversations about tariffs and how that, impacts businesses and who's going to bring more manufacturing. And so what I think is great is that if you're a consumer, right, you're listening and you're wanting to, again, spend your dollars this way, which is a big part of what we want to help people do. It's great to have some confidence in what you're purchasing. And I also think for, somebody out there who may want to be an investor to help you, further your mission, to help them understand you have a process built in for this, which I think is incredible. And again, 150,000 products already is phenomenal. And so I just think that's helpful to understand. What's that process for getting on the site again? And how can consumers have that confidence?
We have 3 primary needs at the moment. One are manufacturers. We're always looking for more manufacturers, people that that want to list their products. It's free. It costs them nothing. However, we buy wholesale, sell retail. So very simple. We handle the shipping, the sales tax, even customer service. So they really just have to build it and box it, and we'll handle everything else. Makes it very simple for them, and eventually handle the marketing as well. And so, just takes a lot of burden off of them, and a lot of them don't want to deal with social media or marketing or advertising or SEO. It's foreign to them. They don't really understand it. So, that's our mission, to help them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting because I also heard about the $2,500 grant that you announced for women-owned businesses. Of course, I love that. Are grants or partnerships, are they a big part of what you've got going on?
So we're just starting that program, and that was just more or less a initial program to try and see what the reaction was. And because our audience probably isn't large enough yet to really capitalize on that, but it is something we plan to do in the future in a very big way.
Hey, business owners, did you know there's 76.5 million faith-based and conservative consumers that are looking to support brands that align with their values?
That's a $5 trillion opportunity, and if you're not tapping into it, you're leaving money on the table. Our new book, Liberty Spenders, is your ultimate guide to reaching this influential audience using conviction-driven marketing.
That's right. We break down real-world strategies that successful brands are using right now to connect with this audience authentically, build trust, and drive long-term business growth.
So if you're truly serious about standing out today's crowded market, grab your copy today on Amazon or visit libertyspenders.com. And don't miss out on this revolutionary strategy called conviction-driven marketing.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. As you bring more people onto your platform, and Kristen and I have talked about this before because we joke. I'll say we're, a team, and she reminds me she's my boss because we're a women-owned business.
Do I do that really? We are a team.
Yeah, well, yeah, which you kind of sometimes you remind me. I think
I do it in jest because people think it's funny.
I think maybe just to remind me, I keep my who wears the pants around here. I don't know.
You do.
But no, I really think it's interesting, the model too, that it's even to some respects more helpful to the manufacturers than Amazon typically would be. You can create an Amazon store and sell it, and sell your products on Amazon as a manufacturer, but you still have to do all the customer service. You still got to do all the marketing. You still got to do all your stuff, and not to mention compete with other products. And one thing, maybe because you didn't want to get this deep into it, but the other challenge, of course, when you're a manufacturer and you list a product on Amazon is if you sell a lot of them, in a few months you're going to have a cheap Chinese knockoff that's violated all of your IP and patent stuff that Amazon's going to probably do nothing about, and so that's a nice thing about being listed with you guys is, certainly somebody could make a knockoff, but you're not going to sell it, and that's a really nice, I think, differentiation. It reduces some risk on the part of these manufacturers. And I think it's a big one. I've talked to a few who said, well, we don't put on Amazon because it feels like the moment we do it, we've got, some foreign entity who's purporting to sell the same product, and it hurts their reputation because then it shows up and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, and it's not as high quality. And so anyway, it's a very powerful, I think, part of what you're up to there.
Well, the power really lies in the hands of the consumer. And we're creating more or less I call it a voting booth. People can vote with their dollars now. We have a opportunity for them to spend their American dollars on American products to save American jobs, save American sovereignty. When you buy an American-made product, you're buying, your money is being sent back to, let's say, one of these family-owned businesses. They pay their employees, and they're literally revitalizing their community. They are the wealth creators in their community. Money comes from all over the country into that manufacturer. They distribute those dollars to their employees, to the local businesses. So literally they revitalize those communities in a very big way. And if we do that as a whole, the most powerful economic engine on the planet is the U.S. consumers. And if we move one direction or another, or we retract, the world retracts. And so we have the ability as consumers, and we just have to recognize that and understand where are our dollars. Think beyond the purchase. Think about where your dollars are going, who you're benefiting with those dollars, and is it good? Is it going to be doing good? Are your dollars going to continue being good? If we just change 5% of the spending in this country, it translates into about 25%, because by the time those same dollars change hands 4 or 5 times, you just created wealth. Every time that dollar changes hands, wealth is created. And so it's a matter of keeping those dollars in this country, protecting that. That's where our wealth has been leaving. And that's a big reason that the federal government has to borrow dollars, is because those dollars are leaving and they have to replenish our dollar supply. And so it's a really interesting scenario that we as consumers, forget the politicians. We can do our thing as consumers and make a decision on our own, not to go to Walmart, not to go to Amazon, who depletes wealth out of those communities, pulls wealth out, never to bring it back. If we can keep those dollars within our communities, within our country, we can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And I felt like COVID also exposed another weakness of how we've been doing manufacturing, because all of a sudden, when we started having issues with shipping and bringing things into the country, we realized, well, we're doing all this just in time stuff, and we're all running to Walmart buying enough toilet paper for a year because we're worried that it won't land here because we're dependent on all of this stuff being manufactured overseas. So even if, notwithstanding any issue of free trade or anything like that, just the practical problem we've created because we're not doing enough of this, if any, in some industries here in the US. If we ever ran into a situation like that again, where we were having problems receiving things, there's no backup, there's no plan B. And I know a few manufacturers or a few companies seem to recognize that and wanted to reshore some of their manufacturing because they were stuck in a really bad spot with all their stuff sitting in container ships waiting to get brought in LA, So there's a sort of supply chain issue we can solve by doing more of this here. And so no matter where you stand on, should we, how much business should we do, or should we have tariffs, should we not? It's hey, we need to have a plan B just in case we have some of these similar problems in the future.
No, that's a good point, and I'll expand on that. In that, if we as consumers or government or as businesses, if we start seeking American-made products, that means more products will be made in this country because that creates demand. There's demand and supply, and there's two sides to that equation. And if you enlarge the demand side for an American-made products, people will make products in this country because there's a demand for it. And so right now we're in a supply side scenario, mostly because they put it on the shelf and somebody comes along and buys it, regardless of where it comes from. So if we can walk into Walmart, or we start even to the different manufacturers that produce products overseas, if we all start writing emails to them and saying, why aren't you making your product in this country? It doesn't take, if 10,000 of us did that, it would change the economy. Believe me, that's a big number of people that reaches out to different people, and it puts it in their mindset of, it just takes a small group of people to be able to change that dynamic and create if it's illusion or not, it doesn't matter, that there's a demand for American-made products and produced products in this country.
Well, and speaking of that, I know you shared with us that you've got a mobile app that's just been completed, which is amazing. Congratulations. Tell us a little bit more about how you feel like that's going to make it easier for us to participate and buy things from your platform.
Well, it turns out that about 65% or so of our traffic is mobile. And so that means that they were plugging in the website initially, going to madeinusa.com on your phone, which hardly anybody does anymore. So we created an app. It's in React Native, which if you're familiar with coding, that is very complicated, very complex, but it's also very robust. So the madeinusa.com, and make sure you get the right one with the recycling symbol on it, recycling dollar symbol on it. It's madeinusa.com is the app, both in Android and in Apple. And we're starting to see an uptick. We haven't really pushed it out all that to the highest degree yet, but we believe that is going to be an alternative, obviously. And if you just place it right next to your Amazon app, that makes it real easy. You just look at it and say, oh, let me try it and see if it's on madeinusa.com.
Yeah, I was thinking a little bit about what you're doing here, and we were pondering this a little bit as we were prepping and talking about what's the, in some respects, everything we've talked about seems to be the most obvious thing in the world. And I suspect if we sat down with Americans of all shapes and sizes and persuasions and right, left, and indifferent, and we asked them, hey, do we think it's a good idea that we buy more American-made products? 75% or more would probably agree. If not 100% would say, that's probably a good idea. And they'd be totally excited about a place they could go to buy American-made products and help American manufacturers and provide jobs and build communities. But it makes me think of a metaphor I use sometimes. I if you ask me about this 100% of the time, I will say, I think eating healthy is a good idea. But then at, after hours last night, I was very upset with my children who would not go to sleep despite my best efforts. And I'm down in the kitchen afterwards thinking, what here is the junkiest food I can eat? Because that's how I feel, right? And so it feels like what we have is something that people want, but maybe they find, convenience easier. Okay, well, I Amazon has everything. I just go there, right? Or, maybe they're not willing to spend an extra dollar. You did mention the 17% of Americans who are willing to spend more. So I think I'm excited for you because you're solving part of that problem, right? The more people you get on there, the easier it is to say, well, I don't need to go to Amazon. It's all over here in madeinusa.com. But I feel like that's probably the biggest challenge. Everybody thinks it's a great idea. But then, just like me, if I have a choice sometimes between salad and a cheeseburger, I eat the cheeseburger, all within the back of my head saying, hey, the blood test I had recently says I should probably eat less of this stuff. And so it's kind of you're selling vegetables maybe a little bit is the challenge you're dealing with.
Well, it's just a friction. You just have, buyer friction.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been trained, we've gotten used to how we're purchasing things. And it has shifted from going to the stores, you had to be, in those retailers and big box stores. And that's still important for a lot of people, obviously. But even them, like if, you try to buy something from, Walmart or one of these other large stores. And you know what I do? I go and I check and I look it up online and I see if they have it in stock or if it's going to have to get shipped or something. So I think between that and people, us being used to not having to wait for shipping, we're very impatient. There's a number of those hurdles to get over, I think. And the desire just has to be so strong. And that's what I love about, our audience of Liberty Spenders, is because these are people who've said, I value this. This is important to me. I want to support my values. I want to give companies. I want to have my dollars go to places where I feel good about what's going to be done with it, right? Whether it's jobs being provided here or the causes they support or any of those things. And so, the audience is there. I think as you were sharing, it's just getting the word out, helping them know, and then working on reducing that friction as much as possible over time. But you may have other thoughts on it. Obviously, you've been doing this a lot longer.
I love Kurt's analysis of hamburgers and salads. Well, fortunately, there are people that still eat salads.
Yeah.
And fortunately, there are people still go to the gym. So there is a subsegment of our society that does understand and have values and maintain those values. And so the idea obviously is to grow that segment through education. So we have another organization that it's our nonprofit side, which is madeamerica.org. And its primary mission is to educate consumers the importance of buying American-made products or spending their American dollars on American-made products and why to do that. If someone, for instance, subscribes to the climate change, then we can easily tell them that, message them that if they buy an imported product, they are literally contributing to climate change, but because the country that they're buying that product from does not have environmental regulations. So that's an easy message to put out. So that just one example of how we can educate consumers and inform them and what the objective is for the consumer, not just to consider price and quality, but also consider origin as a primary consideration when they make that purchase. And so many times we turn over the package and say, okay, where's this thing made? And we're doing this. We want to do the same thing online as well. So we're just creating that opportunity for that to happen. You may know that online shopping has grown about 9% a year. It's just topped over $1 trillion. So the bricks and mortars, I'm sad to say, they're really in trouble with going to the store and buying products. So we're just trying to be part of that curve. We don't like to see anybody go out of business. But there are opportunities here and we want to capitalize on them. So we think these manufacturers, micro manufacturers are really the future of being able to move wealth and create wealth within those communities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's powerful. And I do think that example with the climate change is, because not only do they not have regulations overseas, but if you manufacture it in China, you also have a significant amount of transportation costs to move them over here. And, whether it's, shipping or you're flying them from one place to the other. And so there's also a reduction in, pollution because when you make it in the U.S., you don't have to ship it cross country or across the world, right? Maybe cross country, but not across the world.
Yeah. Well, and that supports what he said, which is this is politically agnostic, and, it's a great idea that can be supported by anybody with any political persuasion.
If you have American dollars, it's easy to say that we're all patriots because we all have American dollars, and those American dollars can be used for one of two things, good or evil. And we want to make sure that as many as possible of those dollars are spent on the right side of that equation. So that's our mission, just trying to facilitate that. And I know you asked me briefly about investors. We're still open we have a capital raise going, and it is active. And if somebody's interested, please let me know. We do believe this is a multi-billion-dollar project. It's one of those rare blue ocean opportunities where we literally have no competition. There's no one doing this at any scale at all. And so we're looking for the right family office or the right individual to come alongside us and help support this mission. And it's part of a legacy. It's our legacy. It can be their legacy as well, to basically improve the economy, which improves the lives of many, many, many millions of Americans.
Well, I think it's a great thing to be looking into, and you're right. I mean, the recipe for business success is there. You have a demand from consumers. It makes logical sense. There's just not a convenient way for them to execute until they found madeinusa.com. Mm-hmm. Well, this has been great, but I wanted to take an opportunity now to move into our lightning round. So we like to ask every person who's on the podcast the same three questions at the end. This is actually my favorite part of our show because we always get fun answers, but we love to start. We do 90 seconds each, but there's no buzzer, so accountability is low. 90 seconds each. First on, what's the legacy you'd like to leave behind from madeinusa.com?
Well, really, we just feel it's our duty we have this mission. We like to say it's even a mission from God to keep dollars in this country, improve the lives of those within our country. As I mentioned earlier, we're sending consumer dollars back in the hands of those family-owned offices. They have a lot of them are faith-based, and they'll fund their faith-based initiatives, which improves their community in large ways, in significant ways. And so we are on a mission to keep those dollars here and keep them circulating here. The legacy really is just trying to keep dollars in this country in a significant way and educate consumers the importance of buying American-made products. And hopefully that's long-lived beyond any. And the objective, obviously, is to avoid go around any policies that may be created by our government and just put the power back in the hands of the consumer.
The next thing we like to ask people, which is we like to now take a path off of our topic of the day, is what's something that's caught your eye recently? Maybe it's a hobby that you've got your attention to, maybe a book you read, a sports team you're a big fan of. What's something that's caught your interest lately?
I just love business as a whole. I mentor quite a few people in business, and I like to help them understand that the basics of business. I always said I can teach a business class in 2 weeks. No reason to spend 4 years at it. It's not rocket science. It's rather simple. You understand receivables, payables, inventory, HR, and how all those relate. I think you can manage a business and grow a business pretty effectively. So I'm very passionate about business. Second to that, I'm very passionate about with my family. My wife and I adopted 4 kids 9 years ago, and they're our legacy. That we love them to death. We homeschool. We've been fortunate enough to buy a big cattle ranch in Florida which is called Promise Ranch. And on that ranch is a very large rock quarry where people come bass fishing from all over the country. Large corporations bring in their teams and just have a great time. It's called scorpionlake.com as a website. And so we just, we love enjoying life. Its quality of life is very high. We're very involved in our church. We started 4 churches to date, and we just love doing that, and helping, do what's called kingdom building, which is advance the word of God around the world.
Love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for those last assignment, if somebody only got to listen to about 60, 90 seconds of this show, what should they know about madeinusa.com? What do you do? Who should be hitting the website? Who should be contacting you to list their products? Give the quick, gratuitous marketing pitch.
Well, obviously there's 3. We got consumers, we've got investors, and we have manufacturers. So little different pitches for each one of them. But the overall theme really is a very quick one, actually. And it's, think of Amazon, but only American-made products. We've divided those products up into several different categories so you can subset. We have the manufacturers broken out into several different categories: minority-owned, veteran-owned, small business, and then the last one escapes me, but we're about to add an NIB, which is the blind and handicap. So you can buy from these manufacturers in those different categories. And we also broke the products out as those 3 categories as well: made in USA, made in USA with global materials, or assembled in USA. So you can understand exactly what you're buying. But the mission obviously is to keep dollars in this country, be a conduit, or I call ourselves a funnel or a doorway to funnel those dollars back in those communities and restore a lot of these communities. And they're devastated right now. So that is our mission. We're on it. And if we can educate consumers and buyers, procurement officers, specifically to direct those dollars back in through madeinusa.com to those communities, that's our pitch, and we're honored to do it.
Well, it's an important mission that you're on. Absolutely. We're loving that we had you on our show. For people who want to check them out, you can reach Don and definitely check out the website at madeinusa.com.
Yes. And if you found value in today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. We are just really excited to have Don on, and I want to encourage you to go shop, go buy some things. So thanks for joining us, Don. And again, we appreciate your listening to this episode. Again, if you want to learn more about this process of accessing Liberty Spenders, you can visit our website, libertyspenders.com/free. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Liberty Spenders podcast. If you're a business owner, we hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights on how to grow your business.
If you enjoyed the show, do us a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us reach more entrepreneurs and leaders like you who are ready to make an impact.
And write something flattering, because I read them all. Don't forget to grab your copy of Liberty Spenders too, available now on Amazon and at libertyspenders.com. It's packed with proven strategies to help you reach the 76.5 million consumers who are looking for brands that share their values.
We'll see you next time as we continue exploring how to grow your business with purpose and conviction.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode and the one after that.